Hello, my name is Ken Small and I'm an architect in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm here to talk to you about the design of an office building in general. In the many years that I've been practicing architecture in the Las Vegas area, the question comes up quite frequently. So we wanted to do an office building. How do we go about it? Where do we start? How do we finish? How does all that work? So I'm just going to give you a quick thumbnail sketch of the process so that you know what it is, and then if you want to come by the office for the preliminary consultation with us, it's always free and we'd love to meet with you. So if you haven't seen my video on preliminary design sketches and determining if your preliminary sketch will work, I'd suggest that you watch those videos also. But let's just talk about the concept of an office to begin with. So typically what we see for people who want to build office buildings are one of two options. A, they just want an office building, whatever the maximum they can fit on a site is, or B, they have a very specific end use. So they're in a specific business themselves, and the business has functionality and adjacencies. And so I'm going to take the more complicated scenario, which is the second one, and try to lead you into how it is best done. So the first thing you would do is make a list of what all your needs are. And so if you had 10 mid-level managers and each has an office of 10 feet by 12 feet, then list all that out. If you have, say, a training room, a reception area, list in the reception area how many people would need to be able to wait in chairs there. The same thing for the training room. How many trainees would you be training at one time? And put all that into a plain 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, or if you like, into an Excel spreadsheet. And then add to that 15% of the total. So if it all totals to be 6,000 square feet, add 15% of the 6,000 square feet to that. And the purpose of that 15% is it's really a minimum for things like wall thicknesses and mechanical spaces and corridors and spaces that aren't going to be on the list, but you definitely have to build a building to contain the wall thicknesses. So it can end up being quite a bit more square footage, but that's a bare minimum. And then add to that adjacency requirements. So say you have different departments, and so you might have 2 mid-level managers in accounting and 1 upper-level manager, and then a dozen bookkeepers, and so all those need to be in a group. And then you're going to say in your notes that the senior accounting manager needs to be immediately adjacent to the corporate vice president. And then you have a development department, product development, and the head of product development needs to be near the senior vice president, and so on, so that you have a list of what all your adjacencies are and your spatial requirements. Now, if you don't feel like doing that, or you're too busy or whatever, it's not a problem. Architects are all capable of taking that information down when you recite it to them and feeding it back to you. But this is the kind of thing that you might want to do to try to get your thoughts together about what your needs are, and then with or without an architect you can look at your total square footage and look at comparable buildings that are being constructed and what they cost, and get an idea of what ballpark you're in. That's not a very good way to budget a project, but it's a good way to get in the ballpark. Then whether you create that information or I do, we would then sit down and do a preliminary design sketch, which is a very general thing. And so I'm just going to give you a quick example of a commercial preliminary design sketch. This particular one was done by hand, and so it's an odd-shaped lot, and a lot of times when you're talking to real estate brokers or contractors, they'll say, well, if you own so many acres, then you can get so much building on it. But the truth of the matter is that that is just a rule of thumb, and you can lose a lot of property for setbacks and odd-shaped lots. Your utilization can go way down. Some properties are encumbered by a lot of limitations in terms of how high you can build on the front of the lot, on the back of the lot. And so just trying to look at all those adjacencies and the size of the building that you need and the shape of the lot, we do a sketch. And then I would equate that sketch to if you walked into a restaurant and said, how much is a meal? And then their first question would be, which meal do you want? And this is, in that analogy, this is the meal that I want question. And then we suggest that you do two things with it. One of them is that we'll take it down to the Planning and Zoning Department and do an initial very first blush over-the-counter discussion with them to find out if there are any big surprises that they know about that would make you not want to pursue this any further. And this is actually very common. The Las Vegas area has a lot of vacant lots that are sort of the picked over, leftover lots that could have some varied problems, a utility easement going through them, a culvert going through them, a restriction on how high the building can be, even though it's on a major road. Maybe there's no permission for a driveway to come into the property, and things like that. And then the second thing that you can do after you clear that hurdle, which is also a very good choice, is to, again, look at a preliminary ballpark cost. So you can take any good, competent, honest contractor and say, look, don't throw me a lowball price on this telling me that you can build cheaper than everybody else, because that's probably not going to happen. Give me an honest opinion as to where my budget should be to construct this building. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if they know of one building that has been built for $100 a square foot like that, and 10 that have been built for $150, they better be telling you it's $150. Because nobody's ever mad if there's money left over in the end. But a lot of people end up out on a limb because they didn't have adequate budget at the beginning. They started out under budgeted at the outset of their project, and then the building ended up costing $150, but they only had $100. So we're not bidding off a drawing like that. We're trying to get a fair opinion as to how much money we should be looking at in general. Then if that all clears the hurdles that are necessary for your approval, either personally or corporately, you say, hey, it looks like this building's going to be $2 million, and it looks like we needed 6,000 square feet for our own use, and we can fit 10,000 square feet total, so we have a little piece that we either don't build or we rent out, and the land costs this much. Again, you can add all that up, and you can go to your banker and say, are we eligible for this size loan? And you can look at what rent you're paying now and what your mortgage payment will be on that property and make a business decision. And if your business decision is to go ahead, then we take that preliminary sketch and we bring it into the next step in the process, which is what the government considers to be the real preliminary process. So we do add more information and details to this. We may need to hire a civil engineer. We may need to add landscape architecture. We'll probably need to draw some exterior drawings of the building to show what the outside looks like. And then we're going to submit to a process with the local planning and zoning, which is typically within the building department, to see if they will allow it. It's not at all uncommon that they say no. And so having made the first step and learned a few things during the first step, more than likely that's not going to happen. You're going to start out fairly well targeted on what it is that they're willing to approve. So If you brought a preliminary design sketch for a 3-story office building down there, and they said, oh, well, your zoning category allows 3 stories, but there was a prior zoning case on this lot, and you're only allowed to have 2 stories, then don't bother going into the next process with 3 stories unless you have the time and money for a fight. But if you have the time and you want to do that, we could do another video on it. But that's a different story. And if you just want to get it done through the normal process, you draw your 2-story office building, we take it down there and we submit it to a process that at the time of the first sketch, we can find out how long the second process takes. But at this point, for ballpark video purposes, just call it months. The second process takes months. So while you're in the second process, getting all the approvals, most people will decide at some point that, hey, we're quibbling with the bureaucracy over whether the dumpster is going to be on this corner of the lot or that corner of the lot, and we don't really care what the outcome is, so let's just proceed on into producing the architectural construction documents, because we're comfortable with the fact that it's going to be a yes at planning and zoning. So the architectural construction documents, again, take months for a commercial project. For residential project, maybe a month, but probably not, regardless of which architect you hire. I'm not talking about how long it takes us to do things. I can claim I can get it done faster than anybody else, just like anybody else can, but who knows how busy we are on the day that you show up at our office. So I'm just going to tell you, our staff is as quick as anybody else is. Normally when we do a project, we put at least one person on it and hold them on it full time to do it as efficiently and quickly as possible. Why do I do that? Not out of the goodness of my heart, just to be efficient. That's the whole thing. It's a win-win situation when we do things efficiently. Clients don't end up aggravated with us. We get it done as quick as we can. We make as much money as we can. We try to invest as much time and money as we need to into your project to make it a success, to make it good looking, to make it on time and on budget, and that's all. Because this is a business, I have to do it for a living, and that's how we work. And 99.9% of the architects in the world work that way. So, moving on to how long do the construction documents take? It's going to be months. Now, it depends on how big your building is. This is just a general video. If you have a little tiny building, then it's going to go faster. If you have a great big building, it's going to take longer. At some point in time, your project is big enough to where I can put 2 people on it productively. But generally speaking, no matter what size architectural firm you go to, on small to medium-sized projects, it's not efficient to put more than one person on a project in terms of the production of the construction documents, because one person can't remember what another person just did, and having 2 people verbally coordinate it, well, I just did this, so can you do that, slows the project down and makes it take more man hours. A project produced by 2 architectural production staff generally isn't cost effective because it ends up costing more money. Now, a lot of people are willing to pay a premium to make a rush job out of their project, and we're delighted to do that. But on most projects, typical project that you would see, usually one person does the production, and I, as a project architect or mid-level manager, will oversee it. So you'll get 120% of a person working on your project at any given week. The production of the architectural construction documents consists of several steps. So here are the steps. First, we take the preliminary design sketch and we put it in CAD, computer-aided drafting. Once it's in the computer, we print out a hard copy and you get real dimensions of feet and inches. This room is 11'2" by 10'8", and you get an opportunity to make adjustments. And normally you either make adjustments and we redo until you're satisfied, or hopefully at the outset it's similar enough to your preliminary design sketch where you say, yep, that's what I wanted, and then you sign off on it. So once you give that approval, we proceed on to the hardline exterior elevations, again drawn on the computer, and we get your approval on that. And then we take those drawings and we either hand them to consultants or we produce them, the consultant drawings, for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing ourselves. So 2 consultants almost every ground-up project has are a civil engineer and a structural engineer. So we have consultants that we normally work with, and we know what timelines they work in, and we try to keep them in the loop so that they know when your project is coming to the point that they can begin to produce the job cost efficiently and start on that day, no sooner, no later, and only have to draw it once. So the most efficient way of drawing your project is to just draw it once. Not that people don't go back and change their minds through the process, but if you can do something once as opposed to twice, that's going to be the most efficient way to do it. So that's what we're always aiming for. Now, after we have all the consultant drawings, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, whether produced by us or by consultants, and the structural engineering produced by the structural engineer, and the civil engineering produced by the civil engineer, we're back to the building department, and typically the job is bid concurrently with being in the building department. So we take those plans down to the building department and we file them for what's called plan review. And plan reviewers will look at them, and plan reviewers, as what they live for is to make comments, will make comments, and when they make their comments, usually there will be something like copy some section of the building code verbatim onto the drawings, or where is this calculation, we can't find it, and we'll all write response to comments back to the building department officials who review it and say the information you're looking for is on detail 5, page A, or it's the note that you asked for has been added. And so we go through each one of those comments and respond back. Meanwhile, while that's ongoing, plans can be handed out to general contractors to go through a bidding process. Now, unless you're in unincorporated Clark County, if you're in any other jurisdiction, then the plan review process, again, probably going to take a month, maybe longer, maybe shorter. Depends on how big your project is or how small your project is. And I can answer these questions at the free initial consultation that we always offer, but figure a month for a ballpark video. And then, so the general contractors are bidding, and before the plans are all reviewed, you've found out which general contractor you want to use. I always say, don't sign a contract with them until the plans have cleared plan check. When the plans have cleared plan check, you know everything that you're going to know prior to starting construction of the project. And if the plan reviewers have added cost to your project, you're in a better position to negotiate with the general contractor at that time than you are having signed a contract with them before the plans clear plan check. So when the plans have cleared plan check and you've told the general contractor, hey, they wanted to add whatever it is and add that to your bid, and you're satisfied with the price you've got with the general contractor, then you sign the general contractor's contract, and only a licensed general contractor can pull a commercial building permit in southern Nevada. People ask all the time, can I do it owner builder? No. Only a licensed general contractor with the right license. And there are different kinds of licenses. You can look on the Contractors Board website, or again, I can help you steer through that. But you have to have a licensed general contractor to go down and pull the permit. How long does it take after you've cleared plan check? Typically 1 day. They just get a check and they go down there and they pay, and then they have their permit in hand, and they're allowed to start construction at that point in time, officially allowed. So the timeline for construction of your commercial project, I haven't seen a commercial project constructed in under 90 days in many years. Everybody's always optimistic at the outset, but the truth of the matter is, under 90 days, it's really a hat trick. If it's a very small project, but not for a ground up, for a small tenant improvement, possibly, but for a ground up of any kind, or even a residence, 90 days, it's considered a really good time if you can get it done that fast. Why? Because they have to build a little and then stop and wait for inspections, and then build a little more and stop and wait for inspections again. So just the nature of the beast, that's how long it takes. Some contractors are faster than others. Every contractor wants to tell you he's going to do it faster than the other guy, but there are no miracles. So pretty much takes as long for one contractor to stand up a wall as it does another. Can you expedite this? You bet. They can work 3 shifts in a day. If you want to throw money at your project to hurry it up, God bless you. Everybody wants to work with you because you're really doing it the least efficient way possible. But if you have to hurry and get open in time for, I don't know what, next fiscal year, or the 20 people that are being transferred from the Toledo office, or whatever goal you're shooting for, all this can be expedited. There's lots of ways to expedite. Timelines can be compressed and all that. But for a ballpark video like this, I'm giving you good guesses to work off of, thumbnail guesses, not knowing what your project is like. Anyway, at the end of the project, you could have one of two things. One is a temporary certificate of occupancy, and the other one is a certificate of occupancy. So, say you're just building one building as an example, and you get the building to a point where they're willing to issue what's called a TCO, temporary certificate of occupancy. There's a couple things missing. You need this, you need that, but the building department goes, okay, those aren't life safety issues, you can go ahead and move in. Then your general contractor is still going to be around doing this and that while you're moving in or after you're moving in, but again, it's a way to cut a little bit off the timeline. What you really hope for is a certificate of occupancy. And so a lot of times when you're entering into a construction contract, that's going to be the key date that you're working to. Hey, we need a certificate of occupancy on February 2nd, or whatever the date is. General contractors are used to this, and they know how to schedule accordingly, and there are no surprises in those kind of situations that when you say I need to be in by this date, nobody's astonished by it. That doesn't mean that they can't not make the deadline, but typically everybody has a deadline. You might have a lease in the office that you're at now, and the lease expires on a certain date, and maybe after that you're paying a premium for month-to-month rent, or whatever it is. So how long is the whole process from the day one sketch to the grand opening party? I would say probably an absolute minimum for a ground-up building is going to be 6 months. And I have seen projects that have taken multiple years for large projects. And but 6 months, absolute minimum to get it done, and that's a hustle every day. You're going to give me and your contractor and everybody else involved your cell phone number, and we're going to call you nights and weekends, because that's the kind of timeline that you put yourself on if you're going to get a project done in that amount of time. You're going to pay a little bit of money for expediting during the permitting and other processes, not a terrible amount of money, not an ungodly amount of money, but you're making decision to hustle at 6 months. If you have a year, if you haven't bought the land yet and you're saying, how much to do this without a lot of heartburn? I want to take a week off between Christmas and New Year's and go see my grandmother. Budget a year. Do yourself a favor. Nobody's ever mad if it gets done a month early, and it almost never gets done a month early. But budget a year, ballpark, and you won't have gone far from wrong. And if you're saying, okay, I want to, in the year 2020, I need whatever the building is, then just work a year backwards from the month that you want to be moved in, and that's a normal timeline. And again, bigger projects, more timeline, smaller projects, less timeline. My name is Ken Small, and I'm an architect in Las Vegas, Nevada. And this is just a quick thumbnail idea. You know, if this was a medical video, I'd be telling you, be sure to see your doctor before you take any of these pills. But it's the same thing for this video. It's just a general idea, but it gives you a good idea of where you're at and how it all works. And we hope that you'll like the video and decide to come over for the initial free consultation in our office. The office number here is 702-873-1718, and my name is Ken Small. And there's a lot more to tell you, so please watch all of our other videos. And we hope that we can be your architect on your upcoming office project. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.